Welcome to the TTS Talking Educators podcast. Each week, we'll be joined by educational experts from across the globe, offering exclusive insights, inspiration, and guidance to help practitioners unlock the potential for learning in educational settings. Hello, my name is Mark Loveday, your host for this week's TTS Talking Early Years podcast. I'm the headmaster of Arran College, an independent co-educational day and boarding school for students aged 7 to 19, specialising in dyslexia and co-occurring specific learning difficulties. I'm a specialist teacher, an SLE specialist leader of education for SEND, and have taught across primary, secondary and sixth form in both mainstream and specialist settings, holding a variety of leadership roles. I've previously set up and led SEND advisory teaching services, been responsible for the creation of diagnostic pathways for dyslexia, dyscalculia and dyspraxia, and created and led an alternative provision for students experiencing emotional-based school avoidance, which went on to win Alternative Provision of the Year in 2023. I'm also a board director for the Specific Learning Difficulties Assessment Standards Committee, SASC, a trustee of a multi-academy trust, and a national and international speaker. Throughout this series, we'll be discussing a range of topics aimed at supporting SEN in primary settings, inspiring you with guidance and resources to enhance your practice. I'm delighted to welcome back Arran Smith as today's guest. Arran, nice to see you again. Welcome back. How are you?
Nice to see you again, Mark. It's brilliant. I'm good. I'm doing well.
Good. Before we get started, could you just give a quick introduction about yourself for our listeners?
I like how you've said this a few times in a quick introduction. Can I claim my extra 25% extra time because of my dyslexia to do that?
Absolutely.
It's the best joke ever, isn't it? I love it.
I'm a bit disappointed it took to episode 3.
I know. That's the thing. I know, but that's the thing. It is. That's the thing. So, yeah. So I'm Arran Smith. I'm a severely dyslexic adult. I've spent the last 20 years working in education. Over that time, I have been a development officer for the British Dyslexia Association. I'm now an independent consultant that works across education, founder of SEN Group, and the founder of the Neurodiversity Show, that, as we'll plug it again, the 9th and 10th of May at the NEC in Birmingham. So we're really looking forward to having Mark there, both from Arran, and also we're really excited to have TTS there as one of our sponsors and supporters. So it's going to be an amazing event.
Absolutely, and we're really very much looking forward to it. I mean, the past few years, fantastic. It just brings it all together, and I have to say, it's got a real buzz. So, parents out there, if you're thinking, shall I go? Yes, definitely.
It's free to attend for parents and free to attend for educators. You only pay for seminars.
And it is a good balance. So I would say parents are thinking, is it all going to be educators? No, it's a really good balance. So, yeah, absolutely. Shameless plug, but rightly so.
Yeah.
Anyway, in this episode, we'll be looking at the strengths of children with specific learning difficulties, or differences as I like to call it, highlighting how problem solving and creativity can flourish in those individuals. We're going to talk about how to praise and support children to harness their powers and really help them to succeed. But let's kick off, Arran, with that whole kind of problem solving and creativity, that whole brain approach.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? We look at the concept is, and like for me, my dyslexia. I look at my dyslexia is that, yes, I have these differences, these difficulties, but then I have these strengths. I'm able to see the Neurodiversity Show. I can see that picture. I can visualize what things look like. I can explain to someone what it means to be walking down the corridor of that event. I can look at, okay, how am I going to move this stand to ensure that it sits on a duct so I can pull power through it, and things that I have to do every time I look at a floor plan. And that's a strength, it is. It's like, but I cannot, I don't like writing. I definitely don't like reading. The thing that I find really difficult is going into a supermarket, buying a birthday card or buying a Valentine's Day card. I hate it because that for me is really, it's quite a lot of anxiety. But I think that always for me, whenever I've been volunteering at the Leicestershire Dyslexia Association, we've always said to our students, if they don't want to come on a Saturday morning, but they want to go and play football, or they want to go and do climbing, or they want to go and do tennis, if that's what they're good at, let's give them that opportunity. And that is finding the thing. And I think this is going back to a saying that I've always said, it's like, yes, understand your differences, understand your strengths, because that gives you confidence. And that's that thing. So when we look at someone with dyslexia, what is their strength? Is it creativity? Is it big picture thinking? Is it thinking outside the box? Right? When we're looking at people with other differences, what are their strengths? It's like I look at this thing. I have a colleague of mine that I work with in scouting. Now, we know that she is quite on that autistic spectrum. She's very much there and has that tendencies of autism, right? But the amount of detail and concept around risk assessments, around the concepts of supporting and making sure that everything's planned to the letter, making sure that we know what equipment we need, and being able to recall what we need to do at that time is a massive strength. It's like where for me, I can write a risk assessment. I hate writing them, but I'll write them and I will attempt to read them. All right. But I'm also a person that has common sense. So I know risk. And that's the thing. So I think that's where we look at strengths. And actually, for our young people, we've said it in the last two podcasts, the last two we've done, we have an education system that is all about data and all about results. And actually, that's not the way that we can praise our children. It's actually not the way we can praise these children. And it actually means that this is where the education system fails our children. Because when I was at school, especially for my GCSE year, a high percentage of my grade was given on coursework.
Yes.
Which is not now. And it's like, give me an industry, and I'll be very happy. If someone finds it, I will stop saying it. Give me an industry in this world today that every person at the same time takes the same exam in industry. If someone finds it, I'll be happy to say it. I don't disagree that, say, if we're going to be in a legal profession, we have to take exams. I believe that even in education, teachers, we may have to take exams, right? We may have to take assessment at some time. But actually, in our education system, why is it all reliant that actually every day on this Thursday in June, we all have to take a maths exam?
And I think absolutely, and I think this comes back down to these pedagogical approaches.
It does, yeah.
The whole idea. We think about creativity and whole brain learning. I mean, for example, us as a school specialising in dyslexia, all of our students, we have aspirational outcomes for our students here at Arran College, and they all sit that GCSE pathway and do exceptionally well because we're breaking down those barriers, but we are inverting the system and teaching in a really multi-sensory, whole brain, cumulative, repetitive way to help them break down those barriers. Now, if we think about that creativity, yes, a lot of our young people are drawn to art subjects, drama, design, technology, but equally, we've got the same number of students who'll be interested in humanities, the historical, the English literature, English language. But I think the way we need to view that kind of creativity is, as you rightly said when you were talking about the neurodiversity show. And at first I thought you said duck, and I was thinking, why do you want to put a stand on top of a poor little duck in terms of quack quack? But I thought you meant ducks in terms of my head tricks.
As in adults, yeah.
So that was me. It's back with the duck. But if we talk about how you see that whole picture, if we're bringing that into school, let's share the whole topic. What are we hoping to achieve before we go down to fight?
And actually, that's a really big point. This is the thing, is for thinking at it for my dyslexia, thinking at it that those people, they actually seeing that whole big picture, what are we aiming to get to, actually also helps. So that helps that child to break down the barriers they face. So I think that it's fascinating to me because I think that is how we can then really support it. And I think going back to kind of like that specialism, what you bring as a school, and looking at the industry of the independent sector, because to me that fascinates me. There is reasons why schools like yourselves are really successful with your students, because you are just taking every student and going, you know what, actually this mold doesn't fit. Let's break the mold and change it. And it may be around teaching approaches. It may be around sport. It may be around outdoor education. And I see that. I think this thing. So for me, like, I am a massive fan getting children outside. I was never a PE person. I remember in my year 9 when I was actually taught the offside rule, because I can't play football to save my life. I've got 7 left feet and 4 right feet because I don't know which way is which. But actually, the point of that is that actually we can change our approaches, and for our mainstream teachers, senior leaders, Senkos, slight changes will do things. And I think that concept of praise is really important.
Massively. And I think we need to get that praise balanced, because the one thing that people don't want to be doing is coming across as if that praise is half-hearted and the child doesn't
Yes.
learn, but you're praising a piece of work. I know I haven't done the same as everyone else. I think it's community within that, but I think what we really need to focus on in that praise is that I can see you've tried really hard with that. What could I do to help you? Or what resources could you use? Or linking it back. Remember that lesson yesterday when we were using the counters to help us with subitization or whatever it might be? What could we do to help? And I think praise can often feel a little bit like it's a little bit demeaning because you go, well, haven't you done well on that sentence? Well, what have they specifically done well?
Yeah, I think this thing. So that I'll take something for me. So we've mentioned I am a severely dyslexic, and I remember. I remember going through this. So I went from having a statement in year 6 to going into a new school that was year 7 to 9. Now in year 8, I was told by a teacher, was told to my parents that I'd never amount to anything because I couldn't read or write. Right, that's the first time I ever saw my parents, my mum cry after being at a parents' evening, and that's now I never knew this until later. I knew something had happened, but my mum and dad, my mum had spoke to me about it and how things have changed, some things haven't changed, some things have changed. But I look back to my last day. So when I left that school to go to my next school to do GCSEs, we mentioned Mr. Nike in the last talk. He basically had this. I saw him do it. I was like, our class, our teacher's name began with an A. I can't remember. I know we're AS 9. That was or 9AS was our year. 9 8 A8S and 7AS the other way around, of course. So we were always the first class at the front of the assembly because it was the 7 classes, 8 classes. So we were at the front because it was 8. And I could see him walk up and give the deputy head this box of roses and this certificate. I had no idea what it was. And basically, it was this commendation for the effort I put into IT. Now, for me, that stuck in my mind. That stuck in my mind. And that is what praised me. And that thing is that praise is a big thing, right? None of us like failure, right? And I think that is the thing that is really important. It's like, I don't react well to red pen or red concepts because I remember seeing that in my childhood books as being a negative. And it's kind of, how do we mark stuff? How do we change stuff that actually can give praise to individuals? And I think that's a really important thing. We have in the school that I'm a school governor at, they have a whole school approach around behaviour and praise, which is part of a rainbow effect. It's a thing. And basically, the idea is that you get the full rainbow. That's the concept of it. But it goes into everything. So it's a part of the principles, the heart principles of the school. It's part of how we are doing everything from walking down a corridor, right, to how we're doing work. How are we talking to each other? How are we engaging with staff? How are we engaging with visitors? How are we actually developing our communication skills? And to me, we have a school, and I've mentioned it before, we have a high level of SEN need in our school. We have a SENCO that basically, if I'm there, I have to put my roller skates on because I did like nearly 10,000 steps in 2 hours because she's up and down corridors left and right. And it's like, you know what? Actually, that's what a SENCO should be doing. Yes, she is thinking about things strategically, but she is helping every student. But again, talking to every student and giving them time, because actually that is the other side of it. Is if you can give them time, it is. And this thing, it's like, okay, we had there was a child in foundation that was basically disrupting the class. So I was with her. She took him out of the class, and the teacher was unhappy that we used his praise box to engage with him. But actually, we used one thing out of his praise box to me that wasn't a praise. It was just, he needed his fidget toy. He needed to be able to fidget with something to distract him from what he was doing because he was so overwhelmed with what was going on. And that is not praise in the positive praise, but it's praise in actually he's now being able to control his emotion to actually be engaged. And that's where it is. That's what we have to do, isn't it?
It really is. And I think, for example, here at Frum, we've got a very, very clear system on community points. So no matter what people are getting, those rewards are given to the individuals for the work and the effort that they've put in. That's specific for them. But that community point goes towards a whole school event. And I think that's really lovely because no matter whether you've tackled a vast amount during that lesson, or whether you've actually really focused and got something that you found really tricky spot on, you get that community point across.
Yeah, it's that thing. It's like I look at scouting. I do a lot in scouting, and we do a club of the week.
Yeah.
Right, which is really hard. Like yesterday, we were doing loads of science experiments in our activity, and actually finding a person did it. And actually, the one thing that I did was, so I said, you know what, we're going to give it to someone that asked for help and then persevered. And that's the thing is that if something's difficult and someone that hasn't got a voice, because you have children that come into any situation, they don't have voices, you have to try and encourage them. And that's the thing. And I think it is something that I think that actually is hard in our education system to do, because there is this barrier between child and teacher. And I think that when you're in the independent sector, that barrier breaks a little bit, because you kind of are a community more than that, because if you have boarding, you kind of have that concept. And I think that's in scouting, that's when you can really do it. It's like, I know when a child's ready to leave Cubs and go up to Scouts, it's when they're arguing with me or giving me some sass, right? Because that to me is, they're not being rude to me, they're just actually got more confidence.
Yeah.
It's
they're
like
ready.
they're ready. And like I've got a cub that I stand next to, and she's telling me off because I'm not doing it properly, which is good.
Amazing.
And that's right. You know what? That to me is changing stuff and moving things forward, and that's what we have to do. And that's where education, we have to probably think a little bit differently, and that's actually the concept of what we're talking about. Thinking differently changes everything, doesn't it?
And creativity.
Oh, creativities.
Let's be honest. A lot of our learners have that natural creativity within them, and if we are enhancing that and harnessing that through multisensory whole brain approaches, which we keep saying, it's not rocket science. This is how we need to learn.
That's fine. Yeah.
It's much more fun than going, here's a worksheet. Here's a, let's be honest.
And there's a time and a place for a worksheet.
Yes.
There is a time and a place for a worksheet. There's a time and a place.
At all, but not every lesson.
Yeah, no. There's a time and a place to use a mobile phone, because we didn't get onto that in our last podcast. But you know what? But that is the point. You see, is there is a time and place to use that device that's in school. There's a time and place that we have to handwrite.
Completely. Right? And muscle memory plays a really big important.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Information in.
But it is that thing. Is like, is that so? Well, I'm going to use the handwriting concept, right? Is that child is gripping that pen so tight, right, and they are concentrating so much that actually all they've done is they've literally joined up the word cat 3 times. Actually, in everyday life, is that positive or negative? Yes, it's massively positive, because actually that child's doing it. Now, is it fair on that child to continue that, or is it actually, you know what? Let's just stop. Let's relax. Let's have that motion break. Let's have that movement break. Let's take a moment. What have we done? Okay, how do it feel? Okay, can we use a pencil grip? Can we do that? And don't get me started on pen licenses, because
I agree.
Yeah, that's just.
Let's not get my favourite topic of conversation around handwriting is the slip and grip consistency. The fact that these mini whiteboards just don't do it. The LCD boards don't do it.
No.
Ironically, when we talk about your quote that we talk about in terms of the Victorian times.
Yes.
Ironically, chalk gives the best slip and grip.
You know what? But what about doing it in the playground?
Absolutely, do it big, do it on the wall.
Yeah, you know what?
Paintbrushes.
I will. I loved it. I walked into my daughter's class for a parents' evening, and the head the teacher had got them all writing on all the windows.
Brilliant.
You know what? That to me was the best thing. Right, of course they're writing on the windows, and then of course that I've been into other schools that have done similar things, and they've got this big thing around reading, so their policy's reading, but all of the text on the walls is written in handwriting. So that bugs me, you see. So I can't stand handwriting font. I hate handwriting font.
No, but the only thing I would say is when we look at visual perception, visual form constancy, so the same image being the same in different presented in different ways, that's really important. Because I remember a little bunny a number of years ago who, intervention, brilliant, was getting through the site vocabulary with the intervention teacher, but wasn't making that link in the classroom. And when he looked at it, it was form constancy was the issue.
I can agree with that.
The same
well, you know what? Okay, you're right. You converted me a little bit there, Mark. That's pretty good. I like that one. But that's it. I think for me, it's like, I think praise, the concept of praise, the concept of creativity and seeing things differently come together to make that whole school approach right. But I think the other thing about that is being very concept. We've said, I think, in every podcast we've talked about, and that is that it's got to be delivered by senior leadership. It's got to start from the top, right? We do not have, unless we have that universal approach, it will not work. And unfortunately, I think that's for me. When I look at my education, that was not there. I think the thing is like we've said that I'm nearly 41, and I remember that actually the head teacher was just in his office. That you never saw the head teacher. The head teacher was Mr. Brown. We knew he smoked a pipe in his office, right? Because he was allowed to then, right? But that's it. That's what he was. You never saw him. I think I can only remember seeing him probably once or twice a year at the most, right? But earlier in the week before we were recording this podcast, I was at a conference where I spoke to a head teacher from a London school, 5-form entry school, 2 sites, right? 70% of the time he's in one site. At least 4 days a week he's in the playground. And if he's in, and that's the thing, and that to me is being present, and that then also gives praise, right? That's thing, and I can see that. That thing is that the concept of community engagement, the concept of supportive educational systems within our education to support both parents and young people gives praise to young people, that encourages them. And that's the thing. I think that's what really can help and change people's lives.
I agree with that presence. Absolutely. The conversations I have around the school site all the day, in the playground, in the corridors, just like, I saw you doing this. Isn't that brilliant? Or actually, I really like that idea you shared.
And that's the thing. It's like that thing. It's like that's why I don't go into school very often, because I could spend hours just like looking at things like that.
Do you know what? We could carry on for hours, and I know
we need to probably finish this podcast.
But what I want to say, Aaron, absolute pleasure as always. Thank you so very much. And I think
thank you very much, Mark.
Going back down to this, praise has got to be like everything else. It's got to feed through. It's got to be a culture that really enables all of our young people to thrive. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thanks, Aaron. Bye-bye.
Take care.
I'd like to say a huge thank you to our guest, Arran, for joining us and providing such valuable insights. You've been listening to the TTS Talking Educators podcast with me, Mark Loveday, and Arran Smith. If you've been inspired by our conversation today, don't forget you can sign up via the link in our episode notes to be the first to hear about future episodes and access exclusive follow-up content, including ideas for your settings and links to relevant resources.